Hi, hello, my name is Gomer Joseph. I hope you've all been having a great day so far. Welcome back to another True Crime Tuesdays video. If you are new, I welcome you. Before I discuss today's case, I would like to mention that by God's grace, we have reached over 300 subscribers, and I know to anybody who's new, I know that's like pretty not that big, but it's more subscribers than I had when I started out. I would once again I'd like to go ahead and thank you all who have been with me since the beginning, and Lord willing, we can make it to another 300 subscribers. I'd also like to mention my Christian suspense book series, Never As It Seems. The first book in the series is available on Amazon for 99 cents, and you can read it on any device on the Kindle app. But you can also get it for free if you have got Kindle Unlimited. If you don't know what Kindle Unlimited is, it's basically like Amazon's streaming service for books. You can get a 30-day free trial or get a 2-month free trial starting at 99 cents, which will later turn into a $9.99 monthly fee. If you are interested, the link will be in the description box. Today, I'll be discussing the solved Myra Hindley and Ian Brady murders. It's been a while since I discussed serial killers in my videos, and this case just breaks my heart and blows my mind and really disturbs me. What's worse about this case is that children were the victims, and it's by the grace of God that there has been justice for these murders. I encourage you all to do your own research with this case and not to just look at my video for all of the information. So here we go. If you are new or you're familiar with my videos, I just want to go ahead and say that I do hate discussing the murderers more than their victims, but this is just to understand the case better. I'll start with Ian Brady. So, Ian Brady was born on January 2nd, 1938, in Glasgow, Scotland. His mother's name was Margaret Stewart, but she went by Peggy. As for his father, that's pretty much not really known. Ian's mother claimed that he was some journalist who passed away 3 months before Ian was born. So Peggy, Ian's mother, couldn't support him shortly after his birth because she did work as a tea room waitress, and I don't want to share misinformation, so I'm unsure if that's like a diner in the UK. She gave up Ian to John and Mary Sloan, but continued to visit him from time to time. There are rumors that he tortured animals when he was young, but this is something that Ian denied. But his upbringing wasn't really normal. Now, he was accepted into this high ranking school in the UK called Shawlands Academy, but while he was a student there, he appeared in juvenile court for breaking into houses. I'm not really sure if he was kicked out or if he dropped out, but at 15, he was no longer in the academy, and Ian worked as this tea boy. Later on, he worked as a butcher's messenger boy. Now, Ian seemed to be aggressive. There was this time where he dated this Evelyn Grant girl, and after seeing her simply dance with another boy, he pulled a knife out on her. He thought it was appropriate to pull out a knife on his girlfriend for just simply dancing with some other guy. And clearly, Evelyn wasn't having that, so she kicked Ian to the curb. And I would do the same if my significant other pulled a knife out on me. Ian kept getting into trouble with the law and was on probation at 17 years old. He was forced to live with his birth mother, Peggy, who lived in Manchester, England at the time, and was married to a Patrick Brady. Patrick connected Ian to a job, and Ian took Patrick's last name, Brady. Once again, Brady was up to no good. He stole a bunch of lead seals and tried to illegally sell them. So after he was caught, Ian was sent to prison. He had this 2-year sentence since he was like under 18. So Brady kept being sent to different facilities because he could not stay out of trouble. Like somehow he obtained alcohol and got drunk. After his release, he got a couple of jobs that didn't stick. He decided to make better choices in his life and worked as a bookkeeper in a library. Now, his parents were impressed by this because the library job influenced Brady to study in his room for hours. But the strange thing is that he read Hitler's book Mein Kampf, and I have no idea if I'm saying it right. And, since we all know who Hitler was, I frankly do not care. Brady was, for some reason, fascinated by the Nazis, and as a black man, that really doesn't make me. It just makes Brady seem even more iffy to me. Later on, to no surprise, he got another job doing office work. Now, coworkers described him as quiet but aggressive, and by this time, y'all would already know that Brady's got some aggressive streak. As for Myra Hindley, she was born on July 23rd, 1942 in Manchester, England, to parents Bob and Nellie Hindley. And like Brady, she didn't have the best childhood. Her father Bob had drinking problems and was aggressive. He literally attacked anyone who made him angry, and unfortunately his own wife and child were included as well. At 5 years old, Myra lived with her grandmother nearby, and what confuses me is that she still communicated with her father, so I don't know if she lived with them or if Myra's father lived with her while she was in her grandmother's house, or if he just stopped by, or if she'd stopped by her father's house to visit. I don't know. But what's also strange was that while Myra's father was using her as a punching bag, he taught the girl how to fight and defend herself. Like Brady, Myra left school at 15 and worked as a clerk. I don't know, it really just blows my mind how back in the day, people got these jobs easier than people can get them now, and they got them without a high school degree, but I don't want to go ahead and rant about it. But at 17 years old, Myra was a devout Catholic at the time. She was engaged to this guy, but the engagement didn't go through because she believed this guy was just too immature and was unable to provide the life that she wanted or felt that she deserved. At 18, in 1961, Myra was working as a clerk in another company, and by this time in this company, she met Brady, who was 23 years old, and she quickly was infatuated by this guy. Since these two had troubled pasts, they saw each other as a way to have a bright new future and to leave the past behind. Like I mentioned before, Myra was dedicated in Catholicism, but Brady influenced her to push that away and read other books and other philosophies, also reading books on crime and torture, and watching X-rated films. Eventually, Brady had Myra wrapped around his finger to the point where she'd do anything for him. So in 1963, Brady had the idea of committing this perfect murder, and not only that, but he wanted his first victim to be a child who he could assault and bury. In June of that year, Brady moved in with Myra in her grandmother's house, and why her grandmother was just letting some random dude that her granddaughter was, involved with, I don't know personally that many grandmothers who would do that, but okay. On July 12, 1963, Myra Hindley drove a van and spotted 16-year-old Pauline Reed, who she knew because Hindley's younger sister Maureen went to school with her. So Myra told Pauline that she lost this expensive glove and needed her help finding it. Pauline believed Myra Hindley's lies and hopped in the van with her, which is understandable because she knew Hindley. But Brady followed the van on his motorcycle. Hindley drove Pauline to this open piece of land called Saddleworth Moor, and sadly, Pauline was viciously assaulted and murdered with a knife there. And there are gonna be two different accounts, so try to stay with me. Hindley claimed that she waited in the van, but when she decided to get out, she saw Pauline's dead body and asked Brady if he assaulted the girl, to which he admitted to doing. Brady claimed that Hindley was there at the same time, so overall, it doesn't matter because the girl was senselessly killed and Hindley lured Pauline, knowing what Brady was planning on doing anyway. On November 23rd, 1963, 4 months after Pauline's murder, Brady and Hindley were at some market and spotted 12-year-old John Kilbride. So they offered him a ride home because they said his parents might be worried that he was out late, and offered him alcohol. A 12-year-old, may I remind you. As they drove in the van, Hindley talked about the fake glove and drove John to the moor where Brady assaulted him and murdered the boy with a knife. So since John's family had no idea where he was, they were searching for him, not knowing that he was no longer alive. On June 16th, 1964, Hindley was loading boxes into her van right outside of her grandmother's house, and 12-year-old Keith Bennett spotted this. Hindley asked Keith for help and offered him a ride home with Brady in the back of the van. At the moor, Hindley made up the glove story again. Then Brady assaulted Keith and killed the boy with a rope. Brady, Hindley, and Hindley's grandmother moved to some Manchester suburban neighborhood next to Hindley's sister Maureen, who was married to a David Smith. From what I gathered, it was a rushed marriage. It was in the 60s, Maureen got pregnant without getting married. David was the father, so they needed to get married so things could look squeaky clean. But because of the circumstance, Hindley and her family weren't really too pleased with her sister's marriage anyway. What's even crazier is that David Smith had a violent past, and we'll get to him soon. On December 26, 1964, as we all know, is the day after Christmas, Brady and Hindley spotted 12-year-old Leslie Ann Downey alone at some fair. They asked her to help get packages into their van and drove her to Hindley's grandmother's house. And this poor girl, she was undressed, tied up, and forced to pose unclothed as they took pictures of her. And of course, this wasn't enough for them, so they continued to torture the girl by assaulting Leslie and strangling her to death. Like, Hindley claimed she was in the bathroom when Brady murdered Leslie, but Brady claimed Hindley killed the girl. Again, they both lured Leslie to her death, so they're both still guilty. They drove over to the moor and buried her there. Back to David Smith. Like I mentioned before, Smith had a violent criminal record and even broke into someone's home. Since Brady had a criminal record too, he and Smith formed a friendship, discussing robbery and murder. On October 6, 1965, Hindley drove Brady to a train station and waited outside for Brady to find their next victim. Brady brought back 17-year-old Edward Evans, who was an engineer apprentice, and claimed to Edward that Hindley was his sister. They all drove to Hindley's grandmother's house, where they all drank wine. Brady asked Hindley to grab Smith into the living room, which she did. According to Smith, Hindley asked him to help as Smith saw Brady kill Edward with a hatchet as he and Edward struggled. The fact that Edward even had to fight for his life, it just gives me the chills, honestly. Brady, because he sprinkled his ankle during the struggle, got Smith to help him wrap Edward up in a sheet and place him in the guest bedroom. The next day, Smith called the police and told them about Edward's murder the other night. Brady was arrested, but Hindley wasn't, since they had no knowledge of her part in it or about any of the previous murders. She refused to make a statement and claimed Edward's death was some freak accident. Several days later, police saw Hindley as an accessory to Edward's murder and arrested the lady as well. Police searched Hindley's grandmother's house and discovered evidence that linked the couple to Leslie Ann Downey's murder. Because Brady and Hindley didn't speak to the police, there was this search at the moors, and we all know what was found there due to the pictures they took, because they, Hindley and Brady just loved photography and took pictures of the places where they buried these poor children. Most of the bodies were found except for Pauline Reed and Keith Bennett. After these discoveries, the people of England were in disbelief and were absolutely horrified. And worst of all, the families were devastated to find out that their babies were murdered in such a gruesome way by these two murderers. Of course, these two monsters were charged with the murders and rightfully so were given a life sentence. Now, on July 1987, there was basically for Pauline Reed, they were able to finally find her body. So, of course, years later, Hindley died in 2002 and Brady died in 2017. Unfortunately, to this day, Keith Bennett's body has never been found. I mean, it sucks how there's a mystery to that. Like, they know that Keith Bennett is no longer alive, but it's such a shame that Keith Bennett's family can't even give him a proper burial. Like, my prayer is that his body is found. The God that I serve, the God of the Bible, is an all-seeing God. He knows exactly where Keith's body is in those moors. As for the families who are still alive, I pray for them too, because it's such a shame that they lost these kids in such a horrendous way. The more I grow up, the more I honestly can't wrap my mind around how adults desire to harm kids, let alone kill them. Like, I understand that back then serial killers weren't really seen much often. It's awful to think about how these kids were putting their trust in adults that eventually tortured and took their lives. Even now, like, I'm 24 years old, I can't imagine taking advantage of a trust that a child would have in me, especially since I know that I have a responsibility as a born-again Christian to basically gain trust in others around me so that I could point them to Christ. Now, there's no other reason for these psychotic, demonic murders other than that it's the mystery of iniquity and that it's the unfortunate effect of a sin-cursed earth. I thank you all for taking the time in your day to watch this video. If you did like this video, please hit the like button. If there's any thoughts that you have about this case, leave your thoughts in the comment section. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please feel free to subscribe and click the bell to be notified about the next video. If there's a certain true crime case that you'd like me to cover, let me know. I'll see y'all for the next True Crime Tuesdays. I'll talk to y'all later.